Today we are very fortunate to have Professor Manell Zakharia with us. He is an expert, international expert in blue economy, associated with French Embassy. He's also associated with National Institute of Ocean Technology, Chennai. He's a leading expert in underwater acoustics and sonar and signal processing. He holds a PhD in underwater acoustics. Professor Manell was a professor in French Naval Academy as well as INSAM. There are several awards and medals to his credit, which includes the European Acoustic Association and medal by French Acoustic Association. He's an honorary fellow of Acoustic Association of India, president of European Acoustic Association, and many more. So we are very fortunate to have him here today. He will be talking on opportunities of India-France collaboration on ocean, blue economy and ocean governance. Professor Manell.
Thank you, Francis. First, I would like to thank the director for this nice invitation and the opportunity of meeting you. I will talk with you about what we have agreed, we as countries between France and India, on ocean issues. As it was mentioned, I'm a so-called international technical expert on blue economy. And don't ask me what blue economy is exactly, because there are as many definitions as people talking about it. Mainly, it's concerned with everything that goes in the sea or out of the sea, regardless the size. So it goes from microbes at 6,000 meters up to ship decommissioning. And this is why my position and my job are so interesting, because I don't stop learning. Every day I learn new things. I am at Expertise France, which is an agency of the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I am in secondment and IoT since 1 year, and for 1 more year, and hopefully 2 more after. So, marine science and technology for a while was not priorities between our 2 countries for a reason unknown. There have been many individual approaches, many contacts, many projects running, but it was not a national priority. It was only recently introduced 5 years back at the Knowledge Summit in Lyon. Say we should talk about ocean and corresponding industry. And finally, we had a roadmap that was signed by Indian Prime Minister and French President in 2022. And this is why I was sent to India last year to make this political wish become a operational cooperation. And finally, ocean as such in general was finally introduced in CEFIPRA, the Indo-French Center for Cooperation, which is a funding agency. Only recently, in January, they decided that in addition to existing cooperation, the oldest cooperation we had was, I think, a nuclear cooperation, then on health, water, inland water, and this came on top of it. Now it's a priority for financing also. So it's a good time to talk about it, because to make a project a success, you need one-to-one good relation between scientists, but you also need to have a top approval of what you're doing. So top-down will not work efficiently. It will work because people must do it, so they do it. But if you have both people want to work together and support from politicians, it may be a good success. So the roadmap, as I mentioned, was signed in 2022. And the general context is that we both are maritime nations. in fact, we have more or less the same number of kilometers because we have much more island than you have, but both of us are from tradition maritime nations, and we have a very dynamic economic sector, either in technology, research, in fisheries, port, and shipping, which are becoming more and more essential to economic exchanges. So the roadmap is such. I will say a few words about the roadmap, and then I will tell you more about the French system and then the cooperation systems. The roadmap defines the partnership in blue economy and governance. It has 4 major pillars. One is institutional, one is economical, one is about infrastructure, and one is scientific and academic pillar. And I will detail all of them. The general framework is that we want to co-organize maritime trade and harmonize our ocean observation, including modeling, forecasting service, exactly what you're doing here. But we also want to take care of marine biodiversity for mainly survival and food fisheries. We want to work together on marine protected areas. And this is something just recently starting in India, renewable marine energy. Actually, we have ocean OTEC system developed in India, but we also have developed wave energy and windmills, where cooperation can be also interesting for India. We also want to work together on ecosystem management and coastal management, and also managing tourism in an eco-friendly way, and mainly in India, but in France also, you have a lot of activity in inland waters, river transportation and things like that. And we want all our and Indian administration, civilian ones working in maritime domain, to work together. We already have an agreement between navies, which is much older than this, and we want also to cooperate on all the civilian aspects. In ocean, it's sometimes difficult to make separation between what is military, what is civilian. I used to say that anything that goes in ocean is military, or interesting for military people, but it's not, shouldn't be classified because it's military, because everything is interesting. I was a professor at Naval. I used to learn cadets on how to hide a submarine in a fish school. So knowing the fish school population is a way to hide a submarine inside. So, but we want both aspects of cooperation. So the institutional pillar is more, I would say, political and administrative. Institutional pillar, we defined who's doing what. So the Indian side will be represented by Niti Aayog, and the French side will be represented by the ambassador of poles and maritime affairs and the ocean. So this is very typical to France. You have an ambassador only devoted to ocean. We both respect, sometimes it's good to say we respect international laws, and we want it to be respected. And we try to promote this and to coordinate our effort on multilateral bodies like International Seabed Authorities, International Maritime Organization, ocean organizations, etc. And also promote regional cooperation in many structures, including beyond the national jurisdiction activities, which is very less regulated this time, which is a problem for India, I know. When you have Chinese fishermen fishing in international border waters and killing everything, those fish will not come to Indian coast. So we want to make a blue economy a source of sustainable growth for both of us. It goes from fishery, but also to naval construction, all the IT-related technology for ocean, including Internet of Things applied to ocean sensors, for instance. And we want it to become a base of exchanges between our institution and companies. The roadmap cites two events which are already under the way. One was a CTEC Week. I will talk about it. CTEC Week is a conference organized every second year in Brest. It's good to know about it because if you want to know what's happening in France in the area, you go there and you meet all the people. I will talk about it later in detail. And there is also a discussion going between France and the Department of Fisheries well before the signature, and still going on because fisheries, I would say, in India is very complex because it has many levels of decision. One is regional, one is national, and I counted about 6 ministries taking care of fisheries. So it makes it much more complex. Don't be afraid, I will show you how much we can be more complicated than you are. The infrastructure pillar is concerning the port development. You know that India has a big Sagarmala project for development of new ports. So we want to work together on this to make it a sustainable way, which you already do. I was impressed to see I visited the port of Chennai and how much is automatized and eco-friendly more and more. It's easy for new installation, it's more difficult for old ones. And typically we want to make it zero waste and try to recover everything we can and make it valuable. Just to give you an example, we have a French company who just will buy from any ship the disposable water and recycle it to make oil out of it. So now only stupid people will throw it at sea, which is, as you know, a big pollution problem. And this is one of the big environmental problems. I'm talking mainly to young people. People pollute only because it's cheaper. They do not pay for pollute. So if you buy their garbage, this is the best way to reduce pollution, recycling. And also we want to cooperate on domestic waterways, mainly river transportation. And finally, the scientific and academic pillar, and it goes concern mainly research in marine science and technology. We want to enhance it, so we have already some MOUs signed between academic organizations. We want to increase the number of exchanges between India and France in academic and research and students. The objective given by our president is to increase in 10 years the number of Indian students from 20 to 30. It was easy for him. In 2020, we have 20,000. In 2030, we want 30,000. But now we have to make it become real. Don't ask me if we can issue 30,000 visa for Indian students, we will do it. And the cooperation area, as you see, are very wide, so it covers all scientific and technological aspects. So any idea or project will fit in this context and will be welcomed by our authorities. So what is the role of an international expert? What is my job? We have people in India with people in France doing the same thing, and sometimes they don't know each other. So my role is to build bridges between these two people, know them, know both systems. As I mentioned, the system can be more complicated than the Indian one in some cases, and then make them work together. But then the job is not finished, because when they are together, you have to continue trigger interest and have a continuous monitoring and also continuous financing. So I will talk about some French specificities which will help you understand the French system, mainly concerning ocean-oriented issues. So first I will talk about the organization of research in France, which is, as you will see, very similar but very different from the Indian one at the same time. I'll talk about something which is very common in France and very rare in India, which is called joint research units. And some typical grants we have in France about PhD in industry. And finally, I will talk about the C clusters, which will be a way for you to meet everybody from a single website. And I will mention some events that are happening in the coming 6 months. So, research in France is organized with big institutions. Under the yellow banner, it is the people financing research. So you have the National Agency for Research. We have the Direction Générale de l'Armement, which is military research. And we have the European Commission. And I want to mention, if you don't know it, that Indians can be part of European project, and they are financed by their own government, but they can take part in European project. There are already some Indian partners involved in European project, but we hope that we will increase it. And you will see the importance of EC-funded projects is they are much bigger than what we can find fund on our level. So budget here is a few 100,000, here it's a few millions. So we have CNRS, which is a National Research Center. This is a general institution. They do research in everything. But if you do research in computer science, it will be in another framework, which is INRIA, which is National Institute of Research in Informatics and Automatization. We have a big research center on energy and oil. P was for petrol, French Institute for Petrol, and now they added new energies. And INRAE is agriculture research, and CEA is atomic research. And for health research, we have 2 institutions. One is called INSERM, and one is called Institut Pasteur. And concerning C-oriented issues, we need this. Thank you. Concerning C research institution, we have IFREMER. I think most of you know IFREMER. We have the Space Agency, and we also have the SHOM, which is the Hydrographic and Oceanographic Service of the Navy, which do a lot of work for civilians, including safety navigation, charts, etc. In addition to all this, we have many centers. This is the big institution. Of course, they have many university and engineering schools. So in France, engineering is in school. It's like IITs, institute. It's not in university. And many other institutions are more or less specialized. Like we have an institution called CEDR, which is in charge of oil pollution. It's a center on oil pollution only. We have an agency for biodiversity. So we have many specific topic institutions in addition to that. And if you try to compare the Indian and the French system, you realize that are more or less the same. CNRS is equivalent of CSIR. INRAE is Indian Council ICAR. INSERM is Indian Council for Medical Research. You have, again, Atomic Energy Commission. Department of Space is equivalent to CNES. Information Technology is equivalent to INRIA. DRDO is equivalent to DGA. And meteorological department is equivalent to Meteo France. So there are a lot of similarity. And here it becomes more complicated. MOS centers with an S is equivalent to IFREMER. And if you look at the Center of Ministry, for the centers of Ministry of New Renewable Energy, they are equivalent to IFP Energy. So there are a lot of similarities. But that would be too easy if it was the case. So to make my job more complicated, there's a lot of interconnection. I take the case of IFREMER because it's our concern and it's a typical case. In the board of IFREMER, you have representative of 8 ministries. You have one ministry. Ministry of Environment, General Secretariat at Sea, Fisheries and Aquaculture, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Industry, Education, Finance, and Foreign Affairs. But now if you look at while in your case, every center is only one minister. If you look at the activity of IFREMER, it covers all the institutions of an IoT. Not all their activity, but there are intersections with all of them, with DBT, NIO, CSMRE, and all the fisheries activity. So when you look for cooperation, sometimes it's very tricky to make the matching. But this is why they need someone to do it. So don't be afraid of that, but it's something to understand, because all the research work in France is not done by institution independently. It's done, what we call it, Unité Mixte de Recherche, which stands for Joint Research Unity. What is a joint research unity? It's somewhere like here. When you have one guy sitting here from one ministry, one university, one other ministry, another university, and they are in the same lab, working on the same project. So you can have at least one academic partner, but usually it's a bunch of partners. So one of the research centers I mentioned, university, engineering schools. And then you can have also non-academic. You can have big companies, SMEs, NGOs, hospitals, public agency, museum, anything you want. And they work together in the same lab or unity with a specific research program. Like if you take INCOS, you may have INCOS with people sitting here from IIT Madras, IIT Hyderabad, ministry or industry, shipping industry. They are all in the same, doing research together. But they are in the same unit. So every time you want to work with someone, you will see all the labs are common research unit. IFREMER has, I don't know, maybe 25 or 30 labs, and every time they are associated with university, research center, etc. Sometimes with industry also. It's more difficult to make it with industry because you have to find industry doing research, but you will see that actually in France we have a lot of government incitation for companies to do research. So this is very typical. So you may talk with a CNRS lab, but in a CNRS lab, you're talking with a guy from IFREMER or from university, it doesn't matter. They are in the same group doing research together. And then they may do teaching in university, they may be doing marketing in a company in addition, in spare time. This is very typical. It's not easy to manage, but now it's become a habit. And it's, I would say, effective because it's a mixing of cultures that triggers more information. Mainly when you mix with companies, you have one guy dreaming and the other one who has to solve daily problems. And when they discuss together, you may end up with new solutions. And we have many tools to have a close connection with industry. also we have all these tools, we still complain with there's not enough link between industry and academia. Connection is historical one. For a while, industry used to build up schools, engineering school for the need. So electrical chemistry created SUPELEC, chemical industry created the CPE. All the industry, when they needed people, they created their own. Even recently, IT industry created new schools because they needed a new type of people. And you also have participation of industry in the mixed research unit, joint research unit. And then you have all the financial rules. In France, all the companies pay 0.5% of the total payroll. It's called apprenticeship tax. And this tax, either you give it to an institution doing education or it goes to government. So most of them want to pay schools that are afterward creating the people who will come to their place. They also have an obligation of having continuous education. So they have about 1% of their budget must go to total education, continuous education. And who's doing the continuous education? Academia. They also, this is more recent, they have what we call tax credit. So if you do research and development in France as a company, you can deduce the cost from your tax. Of course, it's limited, but the limit, as you see, is very high. So if you, up to 30%, if for less than 100 million euro, 100 million euro is about 100 more time in rupees, so it's a big amount. So you can deduce it from your tax. So now you pay only 70% of the research cost. And if you go over this, it's about 5%. So all these measures, financial measure, has been established to increase the cooperation. And of course, in addition, you have, as everywhere, research contract consulting activities of academia. And we have something which is very typical to France. I will put it in detail, which is PhD, which is financed by industry and by government. This scheme is called CIFRE, CIFRE. It has been established in 1980-something to increase the know-how transfer between academia and companies. So the scheme is you need 3 partners, 1 student, 1 academic lab, and 1 industry. The student is selected by both lab and industry, then he's hired by the industry as a research engineer. The company will get 50% back, so his salary will cost only 50%. And they establish a tutoring contract between, with the academia, depending on what they want to do. It will depend on facility use, or is it a computer or whatever. And after the defense, the student can be hired by the company. It's not compulsory, but it's most of the cases it happens. So in fact, you need to do nothing to make the transfer. Because the PhD student, after he finishes his PhD, he doesn't even change employer. He's the same employer. He becomes a member, full member of the industry. So the transfer is done automatically. And that triggers more exchanges between academia and industry. It was established by a socialist government.
Is there any bond between this government and company and the student? If student don't want to join that company, want to...
He's free. No, it's not. If the student doesn't want to join company, he can leave. If the company doesn't want to keep the student, they're no obligation. But usually they're interest because they invested to train him, on if it's done properly, you as a company, you invest to train someone in a lab who has a new know-how. So it's your interest, unless in the meanwhile there have been big strategy changes or whatever, it happens. But most of the cases, maybe 90%, they hire them afterward because they need them. Yes?
Any restriction on the nationality of the PhD?
No, and the Indian students are acceptable. This is a very good question because I forgot to say. So since 5 years, you can be an Indian student making a PhD in an Indian company, in a French company, and French institution with an Indian supervisor. It can be co-supervised PhD.
And the salary reimbursement by government.
Yeah.
Generally, government salaries are no, we have to fix the
No.
things.
It's not 50. He's hired as a research engineer in the company on company salaries,
Okay.
and government will pay half of it. It's of course there's a limit.
Here the corporates have a different salary structure.
No. There is a limit, the upper limit, but it's not the government limit. And in France, the difference is not that big as big as in India. So it's quite interesting. PhD is more than academic grant, because all universities they have their own PhD grants. I think it's 1.5 more. So it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting for the lab because they initiate cooperation with the real world, and for the company because they get their people trained by other guys with the new skills. And this, when I talked to the secretary about this, he's very fond of it. It's not yet installed in India, but I think it's a way to go ahead to increase the cooperation and development of industry in India. Now I'm going to talk about what is CEFIPRA. We have a cooperation tool which is, I think, more than 20 years old. It's called Indo-French Center for Promotion of Advanced Research. And it is there to finance exchanges and cooperations. You have different cooperation schemes. It can be academia to academia, industry to academia, and mobility. So here you have either research program or seminar and workshop. So if you want to make a seminar here with French people, it can be financed by CEFIPRA. All the slides will be available for all of you because there are many websites. You don't have to take. Then here you have industry academia. It's more or less same but with industrial partner. And we also have mobility fellows for masters and PhD, and a specific program for women in science. So you have to check on the website because all this number may change in the future. So don't. If you have a student already running a PhD in India, they can go for a doctoral stay of 2 to 6 months in France. And the amount is about 1,500 a month. It looks like a big amount in India. It's about the minimum salary in France. You have to be cautious about the difference of cost of life between France and India. So it's a reasonable amount for survival, but it's not like if you were spending this same amount here in India. It's also valid for master student from France going to India. Fields of research are very wide, and now ocean is part of them. You have another program for masters and bachelor for small visits, which is handled by Campus France. Campus France is again part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs taking care of student exchange. This is like 1 week or 1 month spent in a lab. it's a smaller amount, but it's also different qualification. It's only, I would say, a visit of 1 week to a place to discover the lab, or mainly to trigger new cooperation. Sorry. Trigger new cooperation or exchange first contact. So this is a tool of cooperation. And now if you're sitting on the Indian side and say, I want to know what's happening in France, we made life easy for you. Because in France, everything, sorry, I forgot this one. A typical CEFIPRA project, it's about 3 years. It's about 150,000 average funding, so it's 1.2 crores about. Maximum is 200. And you have 2 submission dates a year. It's a high selection, 1 out of 10 is accepted. And industry, academia, research is typically 2+2, 2 academia, 2 industry, 1 from each country. And specific program, you also have, in addition, specific program managed by CEFIPRA. It's not CEFIPRA budget. CEFIPRA budget in total is about 4 millions from France, 4 millions from India, euros. There are specific program run for BAP France, which is an investment bank, which is a development. And they make specific call for company on aeronautic, automotive, and biotechnology. But you also have a special agreement between DST and INRIA and CNRS, which is managed by CEFIPRA on big data, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, machine learning. So on both sides, we synchronize our effort and we mutualize it. So you see in France, the tendency is to put rules, boxes, and then we make boxes of boxes. So this is why we can be more complicated sometimes. So if you want to know about what's happening in ocean technology, easy part because we have created clusters. In 15 years back, governments say, we want to put some strategy, so this area will develop this technology. Here we have nanomaterial, here we have chemistry industry, etc. And they asked people to join together, create cluster for transfer of technology. So we have 2 independent clusters, one on the Atlantic Ocean, one on the Mediterranean Sea. It disappeared. No, okay, here, sorry. And this innovation cluster, Sea Innovation Cluster, we have 2 independent entities, but they've been working together in full coordination since 15 years. So it's geographic difference, but same policy, same rules. Both together group about 900 members, including academia, big companies, small companies, government, etc. Here are the 2. If you go there, you click and you know what's happening in Brittany area in all possible domain connected to sea. The areas, they concentrated on 6 areas. One is defense and maritime safety and security, naval and yachting, marine energy and mining resources, marine biology, environmental and coastal valorization, and then finally port, logistic, and shipping. So both of them are structured the same way. In 6, you call it verticals. We draw it verticals. You have 6 verticals, and they all structured the same way. They don't have budget as such. They give label to project. So it's, again, a different way. We want to develop marine industry in Brest and in those 2 areas. So whenever there is a call from the government, if you come with a project labeled by one of these clusters, your chance of success will be much higher. Their role is to build up bridges between research and industry. So you have the academic sphere with fundamental research, applied research, and you want to reach industrialization and develop socioeconomic aspect. And this is where the cluster play the role as a bridge between these two institutions. So the role may be in different manners. Of course, it may be putting people in contact, helping people writing proposal for application by European Commission, by national, etc. Organizing workshops, and even they have created a database of oceanographic instruments. You want to go at sea and all of a sudden your CTD is broken, you can know who has the same CTD and borrow it from them. So that, as I mentioned, we start dividing in boxes, then we recreate the new boxes. And if you go there, you can have a global view on what's happening. So I'll give you some figures of the pole of Brittany. First, they are here in a very nice, as you see, with a very nice view at the sea. They are here. Here you have university. Ifremer is here. All this area is technopole devoted to sea technology. So they are all grouped in this area. They have, 423 members. No, something happens, not the same font. The numbers are divided in between academia, professional organization, corporate, and SMEs. I think 69% of them are SMEs. There is a high academic implication, but it is shared by industrial player, major one. It could be Naval Group or Thales or big companies. They give the orientation, and these poles are here. And as I mentioned, they have no budget, but they have control on government budget because they give advices to government. This is a well-organized project from the transfer point of view, or this is, we don't know. In this 15 years of existence, they have handled more than 500 projects with a total budget of funding of about 1.3 billion of euro, which is pretty good. And if you go to apply with a label labeled by a Paul Mayer, then they got an 80% chance of succeed in financing, which is pretty good score. So now everybody is trying to do it because it's a way to say my fundamental research will be used one day by a company and create jobs for them. Finally, I will finish with some event. I mentioned previously the CTEC Week. Next CTEC Week will be in October. Previous one, India was a guest country. This time is Ireland, but there is already an Indian delegation, I know, from IIT going there. There's a delegation probably from an IoT. So why going there? It's interesting because you have at the same time conference on different subjects. I don't know, there's a big list if you want to have a look. You have the website. There is an exhibition of equipment. And there is B2B meetings that can be organized. So you can meet persons of interest. By a single visit there, you can meet people from very different places in France. Second event, I would just talk about this one, go back to this one. It's United Nations Ocean Conference, which will take place in France in 2025. Again, there will be side events, one on science, one on coastal cities and sea rise. This can be quite interesting for you. And one of them is on financing. And to prepare this, both the UNOC is co-organized by France and Costa Rica. Both countries has asked India to accept to be a guest country, and India accepted. So together with MOES, we have organized, and the French and the Costa Rica embassy, what we call blue talks, to coordinate, to know what are the wishes of India, what is the role of India, how India can play a regional role to promote ocean technology. It's exactly what you're already doing by tsunami warning regionally, etc. So it really fits in with your point of view. And first one was held in Delhi, and next one should be held in mid-November in an IoT. Date is not fixed yet. The role is to prepare between India, France, and Costa Rica the UNOC, and hopefully some directors will come, and it may be also a good opportunity for them to come and visit you. That's my job, to convince them. Typically Mercator or Ifremer people. And this is not far. It's only, I know it's not far. This is more far, but it will involve. This is more political conference, so probably prime minister or minister will be there. I don't know yet. But this may be more interesting for you. But it's more science and more than politics. And finally, the week after, IEEE Ocean Conference will also be held in Brest. The program is not yet established because, so you see, there are some opportunities of exchanges by order. First one is coming pretty fast, but I think it's interesting for you if you want to have a general view of what's happening in France, to be there, meet people from different institutions. It may also be, if you want to visit, I'm here. As I mentioned, I'm here to build bridges for you to pass. Thank you for your attention. If you have any question, please feel free.
Questions?
Yes.
Shown the many French institutions in comparison with Indian institutions. So how is the funding? Is it totally funded by the government, or because as you know, many of the Indian institutions are funded by government, but in France, how does it go? All many of these equivalents of Indian.
This one's?
Yeah. Previous.
Yeah. This one?
Yeah.
These are the funding agency for programs. Then all this, let me be sure. This, I'm sure they are all government employee. This one also, this one, I'm not sure, it's mixed. So it's all government institution.
Purely funded by the tax.
By taxpayer. I mean, salaries.
Okay.
Then, if you want extra funding for equipment, etc., it's funded on a project basis in ANR. It can be either, you can even apply to ANR or DGA or to commission. Knowing the fact that both have common goals, because military realize that they are very good in logistics and war, but less good in academia. So they gave the management of their call for PhD, for instance, to these people, or for call for project. So the tendency in France is like here, having all public funded research. In addition, you can have agencies, and in addition, you can have cooperation with industry, which also can pay you by the government money, in fact. Because when the government say, I will reduce 30%, 30 millions, if you spend 100 million, I give you 30 millions. They take it from tax.
Remaining, the institute has to earn from projects, so that kind of mechanism,
it has to be a project based. You cannot, there's a control on that. You cannot say, I don't know, reception is paid by research funds. So there's a full control on what you can fund, what you cannot fund. And research and development activities, you can get 30% back up to 100 million. So, but it's government money in a way. It's a private government money, but it's government money anyway.
I have another question
Yeah.
regarding the marine energy.
Yeah.
Is there any percentage of the total French energy budget is from the marine sector? Is there any kind of estimates like that?
There is a center called France Énergie Marine, French Marine Energy Center, which is located in Brest, working on development, R&D for, as I said, there are many agencies, it's one of them, research and development for marine energy. They work mainly on offshore windmills, on tide energy. Yeah, tidal energy. They don't work much on thermal energy. And they have been in contact with Purnima in an IoT also.
How you engage the startup companies in this? Startups,
Yes.
startups, this entire framework, you are telling about the investment, whether you have a special scheme to engage into the startup companies,
This,
especially ocean startups.
it's so in I didn't mention this, but we have these clusters, but we also have what we call technopole. Technopole is a institution from the local government, and the local government will give grants for startups, and they can also deduce, if they do research, taxes, this tax deduction also. But we have the so-called technopole, and their role is to develop the business and the startups, small companies.
Manell, thank you very much for this presentation. See, many times what we see is actually the link between academia, research institutions, and industry.
Mhm.
That needs to be very strong. In our case, what happens is even when there is actually research done, the technology developed, for the industry to pick it, it has to see money actually. And that money either has to be again funded through the government institutions, or they have to find an application outside the government space. Like for example, say, we developed, NIOT developed an Argo flow. Okay, for a company to build an X number of Argo flows, be it a startup or any industry, it has to see a large market. And that market, the industry is unable to see that market. So in France, how does this work? Which is the sector that actually provides this market to some of these ocean-based research, academic, and this industry? Either it has to be defense in some sense. Defense might be a large, market for some of these companies, or sometimes it could be energy companies. So where is it that you find that kind of traction in the French kind of environment?
First, it's an international problem, it's not an Indian problem. Because if you look, for instance, people doing instrumentation, big companies over the world, they may be 50 to 100.
Yeah.
So it's big company is already very small. So where do they get market? For instance, positioning people, because Ifremer will buy 2 short baseline. Their market, they have another market which is offshore oil. Offshore oil helped in development of these companies. It can be either oil and gas. The big ones are oil and gas and defense. So you have, for oil and gas, it's easy, it's the same product. If you go to defense, you have to be careful. Is it the same technology? Is it military or not? I mean, there are more, it's more tricky, but it happens. If you do sonar, you can look for a mine and you can look for a cable, you can look for a pipeline. It may be the same sonar. So you have to just, the first page is different. So we have, from the French point of view, as I mentioned, support for SMEs, support for R&D in SMEs, like a PhD in the companies, like participation in network. We have also, from the market point of view, it will be more support for export or support for other technologies. I mean, other domain of application. But oceanography as such, the whole world of Argos cannot make a company live. So they must do something different. And we started recently, as I mentioned, trying to work on Internet of Things, try to use developed technology for ocean measurement. And there is, as I mentioned, a European project called, I just forgot the name. Anyway, working on ship sensors for ocean. Jericho project. And it's under development. And I think it's, if you're interested in this, I already discussed with the person who is very interested in cooperating with India on this subject. In fact, it's a global problem because measurement at sea is so costly. We discussed also the ferry box issues, use ship opportunity, but also use ship AUVs and SUVs for coastal measurement, for instance. If you do coastal measurement today, it's lots of money to use a big ship to do that. Even a small ship, you can do it with SUV. Nobody's doing this yet. But if you look, it can be done easily at low cost. So people are considering this solution. For a while, people were considering first big ships. And now it's going again, also in military aspect, they are considering using more AUV, SUVs, etc., because it's all the countries have less money. And when it goes to ocean, usually half of what you put in the water is gone after a year or so. So you have to renew your equipment on a regular basis. So I think there are side markets or using side product from existing market.
Should find dual use.
Dual use, yeah. But it can be dual ocean and non-ocean, or oceanography and oil and gas, or it can be defense and civilian. You must find dual use. And on the other side, the military research, they have a special program for doing the other way. Take simple products from civilian industry and make it become a real product. This has been a big changing in mind of military. I remember 20 years ago when they first introduced a civilian computer in a submarine. It was a revolution. All the computers on board were made by the company building the sonar. And they say, okay, if you take a PC, it will be 100 times cheaper. Then they say, okay, let's buy 10 PCs, and if it doesn't work, we take the other one. So the scale is very different. So now it came also in the manners of all these people who used to have a lot of money, like oil and gas, defense, say, okay, we can also use a general public, let's say, off-the-shelf component and build the system. Any other question or no? Yes?
Nice presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah.